Hey guys, Fenley over Fenley Turbo. Today we're going to be building an Hx35-r. So let's go. Start off with that snap ring. I've already inspected the bearing housing. That way we don't have any burrs or any signs of defect, etc. You're going to seat that snap ring, make sure it's seated all the way around. Give it a test spin. Nice. Alright. And now we're going to oil up our journal bearings. Bust out the good stuff, the hot shots. That journal bearing's oiled up all nice. Install it. Spin it around. Now we're going to install that rear snap ring. Smooth side against the journal bearing. Journal bearing spins nice. Very well lubricated as well. That's important. Flip it over. For the front journal bearing, I'm going to install the rear snap ring. Make sure it's seated good, spins freely. All right. We're going to install that front journal bearing now. Nice and lubricated. Check how it spins. Make sure that front snap ring's seated. Alright, now I'm going to come over here. Disassemble my balanced assembly. Thrust collar is going to go in. I'm going to add a little more Hot Shots assembly lube in there. I put a little bit in that front feed port to the thrust bearing, and I put some on the face where that rear thrust collar sits. Alright. So now I'm going to grab that front, I'm going to grab the thrust collar, nice and lubricated. Put it in. Make sure it sits on that dowel. Sitting nice. Alright. Now, oil up that O-ring for that seal plate. Now I need to grab a seal plate. Looks good. No signs of defects. We're going to install the splash guard. There's a couple different names to it, but we want to seat it. So we're going to come in here. I use a screwdriver and just tap it in by hand. Other names for this: oil flinger, oil throw. I kind of think it's more of a splash guard. But I'm going to come around, I'm going to look at it, make sure there is nothing sitting above the seal plate of that splash guard. And there's a little bit on this one, so just means I haven't tapped it in right until it seats. Okay, come back. Okay, looks good. All right, we're going to install the piston ring on the thrust collar that goes inside that seal plate. When you put on a piston ring, you want to make sure it looks good. I always put them here. I'll put it on the turbine ring for you. Let's see, make sure you can see this. Yeah, buddy. I put the open end in first, then I stretch it, snap it right on. Same with that. All right. And when I go to put it in the seal plate, I go closed end in first, and I just very carefully wiggle it in, snaps in. All right. Now I'm going to install it. I like using a big socket, and I just push down. Otherwise, sometimes you have to tap on it, but I found just a real big, nice socket, and pushing it down works really good. Yep, it's seated. Grab a different pair of snap ring pliers. Oh yeah. That's seated beautiful. But it's never a bad idea to follow through with a chisel. I like using cheap old screwdrivers. Just make sure that snap ring sits. I have had a couple snap rings that don't really seat right. Usually if I open up another kit, it'll fall right in. I found sometimes there can be a size difference between the snap rings, but no big deal. All right, so now we're going to grab a heat shield. I'm going to oil pre-lube up this turbine. Put a little bit on the piston ring. That way it has some lubrication to initially seat. Put a nice layer of lubrication on the shaft. Gotten really good at lubricating shafts doing this. All right. And they'll go in real nice and smooth. Bam. Hear that? That's the rear piston ring seating. All right, so we're going to come in here. So I'm going to install the compressor wheel. I start off with the two balancing marks 90 degrees away. Okay. This is left-hand thread, so just make sure you do not think it's right hand, because if you try to tighten it, going righty-tighty, lefty or lefty-loosey, it's not going to work. All right, so turn on my torque wrench, 124 inch-pounds. Switch it to off, because off is on. Okay. Sometimes it takes a couple tries to get the balancing marks lined up. That one it didn't line up, so let's try it again. We're really close on this one. We're probably about 8 degrees off. So let's try that one more time. That time we overshot it. All right. Sometimes it takes a couple tries to get it lined up exactly, so don't ever feel bad. Same spot, so perfect. Balancing marks are all lined up. Okay. So next, seat the heat shield on the bearing housing. Spins nice and free. It's always a good one. Let's install the compressor cover. Alright, so I always look at them, make sure they don't have any debris in there, make sure they don't have any burrs. I like to run a pick through. This one's good. Oh, can't forget the O-ring. O-rings in. Bam. Beautiful. All right, let's grab a snap ring. You won't always be able to get snap rings with a set of pliers. I have a large set of circlips, like a tool for large circlips, C-clips, whatever you want to call them, circlips. But I've had pretty good luck with these in like 80% of circumstances. Next, you want to make sure this bad boy is seated so the cover doesn't blow off. All right, it's nice and seated. There you go. A 6267 Hx35-r with, see, can you see it? That's my turbine wheel. So sweet. Thanks for joining in. Next up, we're doing a couple different chargers for Gavin Hugh. So stay tuned.